Story 1. The apartment complex truck incident. I still get chills thinking about that night. It was early August, that weird dead zone between lease endings and move-ins, when my apartment complex felt more like an abandoned building than a place where hundreds of students lived. My roommates had already moved out, leaving me alone in a mostly empty building. I didn't mind, I liked the quiet. That night, I was just killing time, playing video games, cleaning up, trying to ignore how eerie the place felt when it was this empty. Around 11:30 p.m., I decided to take out the trash. The bag was way overdue, filled with rotting fruit, and the smell was unbearable. As soon as I grabbed it and headed for the door, I felt something, a strange, creeping sense of dread. It made no sense. The dumpster was barely a minute away, and I had done this 100 times before. I shook it off, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. The moment I stepped outside, I knew something was off. The parking lot, usually packed with cars, was almost completely empty, making the whole place feel even more deserted. The street lights buzzed faintly, casting long, distorted shadows. Then I saw a white work truck, old and beat up, idling near the far end of the lot. No headlights on, no movement, just sitting there. That was already weird. Most people in this complex were students, and no one I knew drove anything like that. As I made my way toward the dumpster, I noticed the two men inside. Mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s, definitely not students. One of them pointed in my direction, and they started talking, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. My gut twisted. I tried to act normal, forcing myself to keep walking, but every instinct screamed at me to turn around and go back inside. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe they were just waiting for someone. Maybe they were maintenance workers. Maybe I was just on edge because of how empty the complex felt. But as I got closer to the dumpster, I could feel their eyes on me, like they were studying me. My skin prickled, and every step felt heavier. I forced myself to keep going, dumped the trash, and turned to head back, just wanting to be inside, to be away from them. But the second the bag hit the dumpster, the truck suddenly lurched backward, its tires screeching against the pavement. My stomach dropped. I froze for half a second, my mind racing. Were they just leaving? Or were they? No, I wasn't waiting to find out. I abandoned my recycling bag and bolted. I was barefoot, barely dressed for outside, but none of that mattered. The only thing I cared about was getting back inside before they could reach me. As I ran, I heard the truck's tires squeal again, and I knew they were following me. I didn't dare look back. My usual staircase was just ahead, but if they had seen me use it before, they'd know where I lived. At the last second, I veered left, taking a different set of stairs that led to another entrance. My heart was pounding so hard, I could barely hear anything else. I took the steps 2 at a time, flung the door open, and slammed it shut behind me, locking it in one frantic motion. My hands were shaking as I turned off the lights and pressed myself against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to listen. For a few seconds, all I could hear was my own breathing, too fast, too loud. Then, faintly through the window, I heard the truck's engines lower now. I crept toward my bedroom, staying low, keeping the lights off. Peeking through the blinds, I saw them. The truck had looped around to the other parking lot, right outside my window. They weren't leaving, they were searching. My stomach twisted as I watched one of them lean forward, scanning the building. The other one said something, and I saw him slam his hand against the dashboard, clearly frustrated. I didn't know what they wanted, but I knew one thing for sure. They had been watching me long before I even noticed them. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I just stayed there, crouched in the dark, watching as they sat there for what felt like forever. Then, finally, the truck started moving. Not fast, not peeling out, just rolling slowly through the lot. I waited for relief to hit, but it didn't. Something about the way they were leaving felt wrong, like they weren't done yet. And then, as if confirming that horrible feeling, one of them suddenly leaned out of the window and shouted something angry, something sharp. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was enough. A final burst of frustration before they finally pulled away, disappearing down the street. I didn't move for a long time. Even after the truck was gone, my body refused to relax. My heart was still hammering, my hands still shaking. Every creak of the building, every rustle of wind outside sent a fresh jolt of fear through me. I double-checked the lock's front door, bedroom window, even the tiny bathroom window that no human could possibly fit through. My brain wasn't taking chances. I sat on my bed with my back against the wall, listening, waiting. The logical part of me wanted to believe it was over, that they had given up and left for good. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that they had wanted something. Maybe it was just to scare me. Maybe it was something worse. I barely slept that night. Every time my eyes shut, my mind replayed the moment the truck reversed, the way they pointed at me, the anger in that last shout. I kept thinking, what if I had waited another few seconds before running? What if I had taken my usual stairs? What if I had looked back and seen something I really didn't want to see? The fear sat heavy in my chest long after the sun came up. The next day, I walked through the parking lot, trying to convince myself I had imagined some of it, that maybe it wasn't as bad as it felt. But then I saw it in my recycling bag, still sitting next to the dumpster, untouched. A stupid, small detail, but it sent a chill through me. I had run so fast, so suddenly, that they hadn't even had time to get out of the truck before I was gone. And yet, for those few minutes, I had felt so hunted. I thought about telling someone campus security, maybe even the police, but what could I say? 2 guys in a truck scared me. Nothing had actually happened. They hadn't gotten out, hadn't chased me on foot, hadn't even spoken directly to me. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that if I had hesitated even a little, if I had walked instead of run, I wouldn't be here, typing this now. The apartment complex slowly filled up again over the next week, and the eerie silence was replaced with the usual noise of students coming and going. I should have felt safer. I didn't. Every time I saw a any work truck, my stomach clenched. Every time I took out the trash at night, I checked my surroundings first, heart pounding, half expecting to see that same truck idling in the distance. But I never saw it again. No one else ever mentioned it. It was like that night had only existed for me, a strange pocket of time where I had somehow stepped into someone else's path, someone I wasn't supposed to cross. To this day, I still don't know what they wanted. Maybe they were waiting for a drug deal. Maybe they were just messing with me. Or maybe, just maybe, they had been waiting for someone alone. I try not to think about it too much, but every once in a while, when I'm walking alone at night, that old fear creeps back in. The sound of tires rolling slowly through a parking lot, an idling engine with no headlights on things I never would have noticed before. Now, I always notice, and I never ignore my gut again. Story 2. The monotone voice in the woods about 4 or 5 years ago. I was living with my mom on this old farm out in the middle of nowhere. It was surrounded by thick woods, part of some big chunk of farmland that got split up years back. Our neighbors were far enough away that you could scream, and no one would hear you. It was just me, Mom, and the quiet. I used to love walking alone at night, even though it was pitch black out there, between 7 o'clock and 8 p.m. Sometimes as late as 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. I'd grab a flashlight and hit the road. It never scared me. I liked the silence, the way the air felt cool and heavy. The route was this loop first, half wide open, where you could see the faint glow of other farms and get decent cell signal. Then it curved into this 200-yard stretch of woods that swallowed everything up. No light, no bars, just trees pressing in. That night, though, something happened that made me swear off those walks for good. I still get shaky thinking about it. It was one of those nights where the dark felt thicker than usual, like it was pushing against me. I'd been out for maybe 20 minutes, flashlight cutting through the black, when I heard it help. Just one word, flat and monotone, coming from somewhere near the turn where the woods opened back up. I froze, my heart slamming in my chest. It didn't sound desperate or panicked, just empty, like someone reading it off a script. I swung the light around, but all I saw were trees, their branches tangling up in the beam. At first, I thought maybe someone was hurt, like a hiker or something, since we weren't that far from a trail. I almost called back, but something in my gut screamed at me to stay quiet. Then I heard it again. Help! Same tone, same spot, maybe 30 feet off the road. My cat, who'd been trailing me like she sometimes did, started hissing low, her fur puffing up. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I couldn't see a damn thing beyond where my flashlight hit, and that made it worse. My cat little gray thing named Mags wasn't backing off. She kept creeping toward that voice. Tail bristled like a bottle brush. Every time that help came again, flat and lifeless, she'd hiss louder, and I'd feel this cold sweat trickling down my neck. I whispered her name, trying to keep my voice low, but she wouldn't budge. The air felt off heavy, like it was sitting on my chest stand. I swear it smelled faintly of wet dirt, even though it hadn't rained in days. I didn't want to get closer, but I couldn't leave her there with whatever was calling out. So I took a few shaky steps forward, my sneakers crunching on the gravel, and snatched her up. Her claws dug into my arm, but I didn't care, just wanted out. That voice didn't stop, didn't change. It kept going. Help, help, like a broken record. I turned and bolted, clutching Mags tight, my flashlight bouncing wildly in my hand. Running back through those woods felt like forever. The beam barely lit the path, and every shadow looked like it was lunging at me. I kept imagining something right behind me, something tall and dark. Reaching out, but I didn't hear footsteps, just that damn voice fading as I got farther away. My lungs were burning by the time I hit the open stretch of road, where the farm lights flickered in the distance. I didn't stop until I was slamming the front door behind me, locking it fast. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring tea, and she looked up all confused when I burst in, panting, Mags still squirming in my arms. I tried to explain, but it came out in chunks about the voice, how creepy it sounded, how Mags reacted. She didn't say much, just grabbed her keys and said we'd drive out there to check. I didn't want to go back, but what if someone really needed help? My stomach was in knots the whole way, wondering what we'd find. We piled into Mom's old pickup, the engine rumbling as we rolled back toward that spot. I kept the window cracked, listening hard, but the night was dead silent. No help, no nothing, just crickets and the hum of the truck. Mom drove slow, her headlights cutting through the dark, and I pointed out where I'd heard it, right near that bend where the woods thin out. She stopped the truck, and we both called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" Our voices bouncing off the trees. Nothing answered back. I shone my flashlight out the window, sweeping it over the underbrush, half expecting to see someone lying there, hurt or worse. But it was just roots and leaves, tangled up in the beam. My hands were shaking, and I kept thinking about how that voice didn't sound right, like it wasn't even human. Mom said it was probably some drunk wandering from the trail, but I could tell she was spooked too. We sat there for maybe 10 minutes, waiting, before she sighed and turned the truck around. Back home, I couldn't shake it. I kept replaying that monotone help in my head over and over, like it was stuck on a loop. Mags wouldn't settle either. She paced the house, ears flat, staring at the door like something might come through it. I barely slept, jumping at every creak the old farmhouse made. The place itself was ancient peeling paint, sagging porch, windows that rattled in the wind. I'd never thought much of it before, just figured it was part of living out here. But that night, it felt different, like the house was watching me back. I told myself I'd check the spot again in the morning, prove it was nothing, just some weird echo or a prank. Still, lying there in the dark, I couldn't stop wondering if I'd dodged something awful. What if it wasn't a person? What if it was tied to that stretch of woods or worse, the house itself? My skin crawled just thinking about it. Morning came slow, gray light creeping through the curtains, and I dragged myself out of bed, still rattled. I grabbed a coffee and told Mom I was heading back out, there just to look, just to be sure. She nodded, but I could see she didn't like it. The walk to that spot felt heavier in daylight. The woods didn't look so menacing with the sun up, but they still had this eerie vibe, like they were holding their breath. When I got to the turn, I scanned the ground, nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no sign anyone had been there. I even checked deeper into the trees, pushing past thorns that snagged my jacket, but it was just more dirt and leaves. That wet earth smell hit me again, faint but sharp, and my stomach flipped. I kept telling myself it was all in my head, but deep down, I knew what I'd heard wasn't normal. I stood there, staring into the woods, feeling like something was staring back. Back at the house, I couldn't settle down. It's this big, creaky place, 2 stories, with a basement we never use because it flooded every spring. The walls are thin, stained from years of leaks, and the floor has grown under your feet. I'd always shrugged it off, but that day, every little noise made me jump. The wind rattling the shutters, the pipes clanking. I kept thinking about that voice, how it didn't fit out there in the woods, but somehow it fit here, like it belonged to the house, not the trees. Mags was still acting weird, avoiding the back door that faced the woods, and I started wondering if she'd sensed something I couldn't. By afternoon, I was pacing, feeling trapped in my own home. The air inside got thick, almost suffocating, and I swear I caught that damp smell again, drifting up from somewhere downstairs. It hit me then, this wasn't just about the walk. Whatever I'd brushed up against was tied to where I was standing. I couldn't shake that feeling, so I decided to check the house really. Check it, not just sit there freaking out. I started downstairs, poking around the kitchen and the living room, looking for anything off. The back door was locked tight, But when I put my hand on the knob, it felt ice cold, way colder than it should have been for a spring day. I brushed it off, figuring it was just the draft. But then I noticed the basement door opened. Warped wood with a rusty latch sitting slightly ajar. We never left it open. Mom hated the damp smell that came up from down there. I nudged it wider with my foot, and that wet earth stench hit me full force, like something had crawled up from the dirt. My flashlight barely cut through the dark as I peered down the stairs, steep rickety steps disappearing into nothing. I didn't want to go down, but I had to know. My chest was tight, and I could hear my own breathing, loud and uneven, as I took the first step. The basement was a mess puddles of stale water, mold creeping up the stone walls, boxers we'd never bothered to unpack. I swung the light around, half expecting to see something duck out of sight, but it was just shadows at first. Then I heard it a low, flat hum, like someone mumbling under their breath. It wasn't coming from anywhere specific. It was just there, filling the space. My hands started shaking, and I nearly dropped the flashlight. I told myself it was the pipes or the wind, but then it sharpened into that word again, help. Same damn tone, same lifeless sound, echoing off the walls. I stumbled back, my foot splashing in a puddle, and the air got so heavy I could barely move. It felt like the house was pressing in, like it didn't want me to leave. I bolted up those stairs faster than I've ever moved, slamming the door behind me, my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I stood there in the kitchen, back against the basement door, trying to catch my breath. The sound didn't follow me up, but the house felt different now live, in a way that made my skin crawl. I kept the flashlight clutched in my hand, even though it was broad daylight outside, because every corner looked darker than it should have. Mags was huddled under the couch, her eyes wide and locked on that door, and I couldn't blame her. I felt it too. That smell was still lingering, clinging to my clothes, and I started wondering how long it had been there, creeping around us. The house wasn't huge, but it was old as hell, built way before my grandparents' time. With all these weird quirks, like uneven floors and windows that wouldn't shut right, I'd never thought twice about it until then. But now it was like the place was showing me something I'd been too dumb to notice. I wanted to grab Mom and get out, but she was at the store, and I was stuck there alone, waiting for whatever was next. It didn't take long. I was pouring water, trying to calm down, when the lights flickered just once, but enough to make me spill half the glass. Then I heard it again, help coming from upstairs this time, right above my head. I dropped the glass. It shattered on the floor, but I didn't care. My legs felt like jelly as I grabbed a broom, like that was gonna do anything, and crept toward the stairs. The voice kept going, soft but steady, pulling me up step by step. The hallway up there was narrow, lined with faded wallpaper and doors we hardly ever opened. It was coming from the spare room, the one with the cracked window and the sagging ceiling. I pushed the door open slow, and the smell hit me again, stronger, like rot mixed with wet dirt. The room was empty. Just dust and an old bed frame. But that help was loud now, bouncing off the walls like it was right in front of me. I swung the flashlight around, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold it, and then it stopped dead silent, like someone flipped a switch. That silence was worse than the voice. I stood there in the spare room, frozen, waiting for it to start again, but nothing came. The air was still thick, pressing down on me, and that smell wouldn't let up like the house was breathing it out. I backed out slow, not taking my eyes off the room, half expecting something to lunge at me from the shadows. Downstairs, I grabbed Mags, threw some stuff in a bag, and waited on the porch for Mom to get home. When she pulled up, I told her everything, the voice in the woods, the basement, the spare room, and she didn't argue. We stayed at her sister's place that night, and when we went back the next day, it was like nothing had happened. No smell, no voice, no flickering lights, just our creaky old house, sitting there quiet. I walked every inch of it, checked the basement, the spare room, everything, but it was gone. Whatever it was, it had just stopped, like it had gotten tired of messing with me. I still don't know what it was. Mom thinks it was some kind of prank or my head playing tricks, but I know what I heard, what I felt. That monotone help wasn't human. It couldn't have been, and it wasn't just in the woods. It was in the house, tied to it somehow. We moved out a few months later, and I haven't been back since. Sometimes I wonder if it was waiting for me, testing me, or if it's still there, calling out to someone else. I stopped walking at night after that, stopped trusting quiet places. The farm's still standing, last I heard, but I'll never set foot in it again. It started out of nowhere and ended just as fast, and I've got no answers, just this pit in my stomach every time I think about it. That's my story. Believe it or not, I don't care, I lived it, and it's real to me. Story 3, the fishing robbery at the seawall. I still get chills thinking about that night 10 years ago. I was out fishing alone by the seawall near the old bridge, a spot where folks like me would sit at night with our lines in the water, feet dangling over the edge. It was quiet, just the sound of waves slapping the cement and the occasional car rumbling over the bridge. I'd been there maybe an hour, not catching much, when I noticed this old house about 50 yards back from the shore. It was a wreck, boards peeling off, windows busted out, and this weird, sagging roof that looked like it could cave in any second. I'd seen it before, but never paid much attention until that night when it just caught my eye. Something about it felt off, like it was watching me back. I shrugged it off, figuring it was just my imagination running wild in the dark. But then I heard this faint creak, like a door swinging open, even though there was no wind. I turned my flashlight toward it, and the beam caught this shadow just for a split second, moving past one of the empty windows. My stomach dropped, but I told myself it was probably a raccoon or something. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't as alone as I thought. About 20 minutes later, I heard gravel crunching behind me, and this beat-up car rolled up slow near the seawall. Two guys, maybe a couple years older than me, hopped out and walked over, all casual-like, asking if I'd caught anything. I said nah, not much luck tonight, figuring they were just fishermen too. They nodded, kinda lingering, and I didn't think twice about IT people chat out there all the time. Then, out of nowhere, one of them shoved me hard, right off the edge. I hit the water 7 feet down, cold as hell, and came up gasping, hearing their car peel out as they grabbed my rod and tackle box. I couldn't climb back up, the cement was too slick, so I swam to where it got shallow, coughing and shaking. My phone and cigarettes were soaked useless, and I was stuck waiting for my mom to pick me up later. But as I dragged myself out, I glanced back at that house, and I swear I saw something again, this pale shape in the doorway, just standing there. My heart was pounding, not just from the fall, but because it didn't look human. It was too tall, too still. I blinked, and it was gone. But I couldn't shake this sick feeling that whatever was in that house had something to do with those guys showing up. I stood there dripping wet, my sneakers squishing with every step, just staring at that house. The air felt heavier now, like it was pressing down on me, and I couldn't tell if it was the cold or something else making my teeth chatter. My mom wasn't due for another hour, and with my phone dead, I had no way to call her or anyone. I thought about walking to the gas station a mile up the road, but that meant passing right by that damn house. Up close, it looked even worse, paint chipped off in big flakes. The porch half collapsed, and these jagged bits of glass sticking out of the window frames like teeth. I kept replaying that shove in my head, how sudden it was, and I started wondering if those guys had come from there. It didn't make sense, but the timing felt too weird. Then I heard it again, that creak, louder this time, like something heavy shifting inside. I froze, my eyes locked on the front door, which was hanging off its hinges. I swear I saw it twitch, just a little, like something nudged it from the other side. My gut was screaming at me to get the hell out, but my legs wouldn't move. I don't know how long I stood there, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10, but then the smell hit me. It was this nasty, damp stink, like rotting wood and something sour like meat gone bad. It came out of nowhere, wafting from the house, and it made my eyes water. I took a step back, finally breaking whatever spell had me stuck, and that's when I noticed the silence, the waves, the crickets, even the hum of the bridge all gone. It was just me in that house, and I could feel this prickling on the back of my neck, like someone was staring right at me. I turned my flashlight back on, hand shaking, and aimed it at the doorway again. Nothing, just black, empty space. But then, as I swung the beam up, it caught something on the second floor, a face, or what looked like one, pressed against a cracked window, pale, smudged, with these dark hollows where eyes should have been. I dropped the flashlight, and it clattered on the rocks, the light flickering out. I didn't scream, but I wanted to, my throat just locked up. Whatever that was, it wasn't a trick of the light. It saw me, and I knew it. I was shaking so bad I could barely pick up the flashlight, and when I did, the bulb was busted deuceless. I was stuck in the dark now, with just the faint glow from the bridge lights cutting through the shadows. That house loomed there, bigger than it should have felt, like it was leaning toward me. I kept telling myself to calm down, that it was just my head messing with me after those jerks pushed me in the water. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. That face or whatever it was up in the window wasn't some reflection or a stray cat. It had weight to it, like it was real and waiting. I started backing away, my wet clothes sticking to me, feeling like hands dragging me down. Then I heard this low scrape, like nails on wood, coming from inside the house. It wasn't loud, but it was close to close, like something was dragging itself across the floor, toward the door. My chest tightened up and I could barely breathe. I didn't want to turn my back on it, but I didn't want to stay there either. I was trapped between running and just collapsing right there on the rocks. The smell got worse, thick enough to choke on, and I started gagging, covering my mouth with my sleeve. That's when I saw the front door move again, not a twitch this time, but a slow, deliberate swing inward. No one was there, at least not that I could see, but the darkness inside shifted, like something big was filling it up. I stumbled back, tripping over a chunk of cement, and hit the ground hard, scraping my hands. I didn't care, I just kept my eyes on that doorway. Then I heard this sound, faint at first, like a whisper, but all wrong, raspy and broken, like it was coming from a throat that hadn't worked in years. It wasn't words, just this awful hiss that made my skin crawl. I scrambled up, heart slamming in my chest, and that's when I saw it. A hand door, what might have been a hand curling around the door frame. Long, bony fingers, grayish and twisted, gripping the wood like it was testing it. I couldn't move, couldn't even blink. It wasn't human, not anymore. Whatever was in that house was coming out, and I was right there in its path. I don't know how I didn't just pass out right there. That hand door, whatever it was, slid along the door frame, and I could hear the wood groan under it, like it was squeezing too hard. My whole body was screaming at me to run, but my legs felt like they were stuck in mud. The whispering got louder, not words still, just this horrible, wet rasp that sounded like it was right in my ear, even though it was coming from the house. I finally snapped out of it and bolted, splashing through the shallow water along the shore, not caring how cold it was or how bad my hands were bleeding from the fall. I just had to get away. I kept looking back, expecting to see that thing lurching out after me. But the doorway was empty again, just that black hole staring back. The house didn't move, didn't change, but it felt alive, like it was holding its breath. I could still smell that rot, even as I put distance between us, clinging to my clothes like it had soaked into me. My heart was hammering so loud I couldn't hear anything else, and I didn't stop until I hit the base of the bridge, maybe 100 feet away. I collapsed there, panting, leaning against the rusted metal railing, trying to get my head straight. The bridge lights flickered overhead, buzzing like they were about to die, and I kept my eyes glued to that house. From where I was, it looked smaller, just a sagging old shack again. But I wasn't fooled. Something was in there, something that knew I'd seen it. Then the lights cut out for a second, just a quick blink, and when they came back, I saw it. A shape standing in the yard, right where the porch met the dirt. Tall, hunched, and way too thin, like its bones didn't fit right. It didn't move, didn't come closer, just stood there watching me. I couldn't see its face, but I felt it, those hollow eyes I'd seen in the window, locked on me. My stomach twisted up, and I pressed myself against the railing, praying my mom would show up soon. That thing didn't step off the property, but it didn't have to. It was like the house and whatever lived in it had marked me, and I couldn't shake the feeling it wasn't done with me yet. I kept checking my watch, but it stopped working, probably from the water, when I got shoved in. Time felt all screwed up anyway, like minutes were dragging out forever. I was soaked, freezing, and my hands wouldn't stop trembling, but I couldn't take my eyes off that thing in the yard. It just stood there, not swaying, not shifting, just dead still, like a statue carved out of shadow. The house behind it looked darker now, like it was sucking in what little light there was from the bridge. That raspy hiss started up again, fainter, but closer somehow, like it was slipping through the air toward me. I pressed harder against the railing, the metal digging into my back, and I started muttering to myself, crap, like, you're fine, it's not real, just to keep from losing it. But then the shape moved, just a slow tilt of its head, like it heard me. My mouth went dry, and I felt this cold stab down my spine. Whatever it wasn't just some ghost story bullshit. It was real, and it was listening. Then the car lights hit me, my mom's old sedan, swinging around the bend, headlights cutting through the dark. I almost cried right there, waving my arms like a lunatic to get her to stop. The shape didn't flinch, didn't run it, just sank back toward the house, like it was melting into the shadows of the porch. By the time my mom pulled up, it was gone, and the house looked empty again. Just a beat-up shell sitting quiet by the water. I scrambled into the car, slamming the door, and she started yelling about why I was wet and what the hell happened to my stuff. I couldn't even talk at first, just sat there shivering, staring out the window at that place. I finally blurted out the whole thing. The guys, the shove, the water, and then that house, and whatever was in it. She got real quiet, her hands tight on the wheel, and just said, "We're not coming back here." I kept looking back as we drove off, half expecting to see that thing standing by the road, but there was nothing, just the house, squatting there like it was waiting for the next idiot to show up. The ride home was dead silent after that. My mom didn't push me for more, and I didn't want to talk anyway. I just kept replaying it all in my head, trying to make sense of it. My clothes were still dripping, leaving little puddles on the car floor, and that rotten smell stuck with me, even with the windows down. I couldn't tell if it was real anymore, or just burned into my nose from being so close to that house. When we got home, I threw everything, my shoes, my jacket, even my socks, straight into the trash. I didn't care about the fishing gear those guys took. I was just glad to be out of there. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house made me jump, and I kept seeing that thing's bony hand on the doorframe, those hollow eyes staring down at me. I left the lights on, like a scared kid, but it didn't help. I kept wondering what it was, why it stopped at the yard, and why it felt like it knew me. I still don't have answers, and honestly, I don't want them. It's been 10 years, and I haven't gone back to that seawall, not even in daylight. People still fish there, I hear, but I don't know if anyone's seen what I did. That house is still standing, last I checked, just rotting away by the water, looking harmless until you get too close. Whatever happened that night, it started and ended right there. No buildup, no warning, just pure terror that hit me and then let go. I don't fish alone anymore, and I damn sure don't trust quiet spots like that. I can't explain it, and I've stopped trying. All I know is that house wasn't empty, and whatever's in it isn't gonits, just waiting. I still get that prickling on my neck sometimes, like it's still watching me from somewhere. Maybe it is, I don't know, and I'm not dumb enough to find out. Story 4, the masked figure on the back road. I still get chills thinking about that night a few years back, when I drove out to my brother-in-law's 30th birthday party. It was this prom redo thing, held in an old community hall in rural Missouri, the same one he'd partied at as a teen. The place was tucked away, 5 miles off the highway down these twisty, wooded back roads that barely had any signs. I'd missed helping my sister set up because work kept me until 4 p.m. So I headed out solo, pulling up around 6 p.m. to pitch in with the last-minute stuff. The hall itself was run down, peeling paint, creaky floors, surrounded by nothing but trees and darkness. It wasn't haunted or anything, just old and forgotten, sitting in an area where you'd hear whispers about heroin deals going down nearby. The party went great, though music blasting, people laughing, everyone in cheesy prom outfits. We wrapped up around 11 p.m., but cleaning took forever, and I didn't hit the road until almost midnight. I was beat, my eyes heavy, and my sister warned me not to miss the highway turn, because those roads get confusing as hell at night. I nodded, thinking I'd be fine, but man, I had no idea what was coming. Driving back, the tiredness hit me hard, and those narrow roads all started looking the same, trees pressing in. No streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the black. I was supposed to turn left for the highway, but I spaced out and missed it, ending up on this parallel road that felt even tighter, like the woods were swallowing me whole. Gravel crunched under my tires, and I realized I needed to turn around quick before I got too lost. I spotted a little embankment off to the side, just wide enough to pull in and swing back. As I eased in, my foot hovered over the brake, and the red glow of my brake lights lit up something behind me. At first I thought it was one of those Halloween decorations late September, you know? It was this figure standing there, maybe 20 feet back, in a dark blue t-shirt, jeans, and this pale blank mask that didn't move. I chuckled to myself, relieved, figuring it was some dumb prop left out by a farmer or something. But then I glanced around. No driveway, no house, just grass and trees stretching into the dark. My stomach dropped when I realized there was nowhere for it to even come from. I sat there for a second, staring at that masked figure in my rearview mirror, my brain scrambling to make sense of it. The brake lights kept it lit up, and I could see it better now, tall, lanky, just standing there like it'd been waiting for me to show up. My laugh from before died in my throat, and I felt this cold, prickling crawl up my neck. I told myself it was probably some kid pulling a prank, or maybe one of those druggies from the area messing around those back roads had a reputation, after all. But then it moved. Not fast, just a single step forward, deliberate, like it was testing me. My heart slammed against my ribs, and I fumbled with the gear shift, hands shaking so bad I almost stalled the car. I didn't care anymore if it was a joke or not. Something about that slow step in the middle of nowhere flipped a switch in me. I hit the gas, tires spitting gravel, and peeled out of that embankment like my life depended on it. The last thing I saw in the mirror was that pale mask tilting slightly, like it was watching me go. The road blurred as I sped away, my knuckles white on the wheel, every shadow in the trees looking like it might jump out at me. I kept telling myself I'd imagined it moving, that it was just the angle or my tired eyes playing tricks. But deep down, I knew what I'd seen. And it wasn't static, it wasn't some damn decoration. My chest was tight, and I couldn't stop checking my mirrors, half expecting to see that thing standing in the road behind me. I didn't even care about finding the highway anymore. I just wanted out of those woods. After a few minutes of driving way too fast, I finally spotted the turn I'd missed earlier and swung onto it, the pavement under my tires feeling like a lifeline. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, and I kept replaying it in my head, that empty road, the mask, the step. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I'd stayed a second longer, it would have kept coming. By the time I hit the highway, I was a mess, sweaty and breathing hard, trying to convince myself it was nothing. The highway stretched out ahead, empty and quiet, but it didn't calm me down one bit. My headlights sliced through the dark, and every mile marker I passed felt like a countdown to getting home safe. I kept glancing at the passenger seat, half expecting that masked thing to be sitting there, staring at me with that blank face. I know that sounds crazy, but my mind was all over the place, jumping to the worst possibilities. What if it wasn't a prank? What if it was something else? Something tied to those woods that nobody talks about. I'd heard stories growing up, weird stuff about those back roads. People seeing shadows or hearing voices, but I always brushed it off as small-town gossip. Now, though it didn't feel like gossip, it felt real, like I'd stumbled into something I wasn't supposed to see. My radio was off, but the silence was worse, so I cranked it on, letting some static Y country station fill the car. Even that couldn't drown out the thudding in my chest. I kept driving, probably pushing 80, just wanting to put as much distance as possible between me and that spot. The whole time I couldn't stop picturing it the way that figure stood so still at first, like it belonged there, part of the landscape. That pale mask stuck with me the most, featureless and smooth, like it wasn't even human underneath. I started wondering if it had been watching me pull in, waiting for me to stop, like it knew I'd mess up the turn. My sister's warning about those roads echoed in my head, and I cursed myself for not paying attention. I'd been so tired, so distracted, and now I was paying for it with this gnawing fear that wouldn't let go. The trees thinned out as I got closer to civilization, but it didn't help. I still felt exposed, like something was tracking me from the dark. I gripped the wheel tighter, telling myself I was almost home, that I'd laugh about this later. But I wasn't laughing then, not even close. By the time I saw the glow of streetlights from the edge of town, I thought I'd start feeling better, but it didn't work that way. My hands were clammy, and I kept wiping them on my jeans, trying to shake the image of that masked figure stepping toward me. I couldn't figure out why it rattled me so bad. I mean, I'd seen creepy stuff before, like late-night shadows or weird noises at home, but this was different. It wasn't just the mask or the isolation. It was how wrong it felt, like that thing didn't belong in the world I knew. I kept asking myself what it wanted, why it was there on that random gravel patch with no houses around. My brain churned out answers I didn't like. Maybe it was waiting for someone dumb enough to stop, or maybe it wasn't even alive in the usual sense. I shook my head hard, trying to snap out of it, but the chill stayed lodged in my spine. I turned the heat up in the car, even though it was a warm night, just to feel something normal. All I could think was how close I'd been to it, how a few more seconds might have changed everything. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat there with the engine off, staring at my front door like it was a finish line. My house was just a little brick place, nothing special, but that night it felt like a fortress. I didn't get out right away. My legs felt like jelly, and I kept scanning the yard, half convinced I'd see that pale mask peeking out from the bushes. I knew it was stupid. I was miles away now, safe in town with neighbors and lights. But logic wasn't winning that fight. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my texts, rereading my sister's warning about the roads, wishing I'd listened closer. I almost called her to tell her what happened, but it was past 1 a.m., and I didn't want to sound like a nutcase. Instead, I bolted from the car to the door, fumbling my keys, my breath hitching every time a branch snapped in the wind. Once I got inside and locked the deadbolt, I leaned against the wall, heart still racing. I told myself it was over, that I'd made it home, but it didn't feel over, not even a little. I stood there in my living room, lights off, just listening to the quiet of the house, but it didn't feel safe like it usually did. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum from the fridge made me jump, like my nerves were still stuck back on that road. I flicked on every lamp I could reach, flooding the place with light, but it didn't help. The shadows in the corners looked too sharp, too alive. I kept picturing that masked figure, wondering if it was still standing there on that gravel patch, or if it had moved on to wait for someone else. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, hands still shaky, and chugged half of it just to calm down. It didn't work. My mind was stuck on replay, going over every detail, the blue t-shirt, the jeans, that slow step forward. I started thinking maybe it wasn't a person at all. Maybe it was something tied to those woods, something old and messed up. I'd grown up hearing about weird stuff in Missouri backcountry, but I never bought into it until now. That night, it felt like I'd brushed up against something real, and it left a mark I couldn't shake. I crashed on the couch instead of my bed, too wired to sleep, and kept the TV on low for noisome dumb infomercial about knives I didn't care about. I didn't want to close my eyes, because every time I did, I saw that pale mask tilting in my rearview mirror, like it was studying me. I kept telling myself it was just some junkie or a kid with too much time, but that didn't fit. Nobody walks out there at midnight, not dressed like that, not moving like that. I pulled a blanket over me, even though I wasn't cold, just needing something to hold on to. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister, asking if I'd gotten home okay, and I typed back a quick, "Yeah," without mentioning anything. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, saw a creepy masked guy in the woods? Might be losing it." I stared at the ceiling, replaying how close I'd been to stopping longer, maybe getting out to check. The thought made my stomach twist, and I swore I'd never take those back roads again. Not at night, not ever. The rest of the night dragged on, me just lying there, jumping at every little sound outside whined, a car passing, even a damn owl hooting. I kept the lights on until the sun started creeping through the blinds, and only then did I feel my heart slow down a bit. I still couldn't sleep though. Every time I drifted off, I'd jerk awake, feeling like something was watching me from the corner of the room. By morning, I was a wreck bags under my eyes, head pounding but. I forced myself to get up and act normal. I made coffee, checked my phone, tried to pretend it was just a weird night I'd laugh about later, but I couldn't shake it. I kept wondering what that thing was, why it was there, and why it stepped toward me like that. I even Googled stuff about those roads, looking for stories or reports, but nothing came up, just dead ends and rumors about drug busts. It didn't matter. I knew what I saw, and it wasn't some tweaker playing dress up. I avoided telling anyone, even my sister, because I didn't want to sound crazy, but it stuck with me, heavy and real. Here's the weirdest part. It just stopped there. Nothing followed me home. No creepy figures showed up in my yard. No late night noises that didn't belong. It was like it happened and then vanished, same as it started. I drove back to the hall a week later in daylight, with my sister this time, and we took the right turn to the highway, no problem. I didn't dare pull off onto that side road again, but I couldn't help glancing over where I'd stopped that night. Just grass and trees, same as before. No sign of anything weird. I still don't get it. Why me? Why then? Why that spot? It's been years now, and I've got no answers. Just this lingering itch of fear whenever I think about it. I stick to main roads at night now. Always double check my turns. But sometimes I still see that mask in my head, tilting like it's waiting. I don't know what it was, and I don't think I want to. Whatever it was, it's still out there, I bet, and I'm just glad I didn't stick around to find out more.